Hi everyone. As Emily just said, my name is Stoica Ostenfeld. My background before becoming a technical writer is that I am a linguist. I have a master's degree in English and corporate linguistics, and that means that I get really turned on, like brain-wise, by all the stuff that you can do with words and all the underlying meanings behind them. I gave a talk last year at last year's Write the Docs Prague called "How I Use Applied Linguistics to Be a Better Technical Writer." And for a few years now, whenever someone on Twitter has asked, like, what is the one thing that you can talk about with no prep, my reply has always been the concept of speech acts. So let's put that to the test, shall we? I decided to give this talk about 30 seconds before the deadline for actually submitting it, and I have exactly 1 page of quickly scribbled notes. So let's try and go through it. What is a speech act? Well, quite simply, it's the act of speaking. So the reason, or like, why is this important, or like, how can you talk about the act of speaking, is that from a linguistics theory perspective, there are actually 3 elements to a speech act. There is, I'm going to use some fancy Latin words now, but there is the locutionary act, the illocutionary act, and the perlocutionary act. Now, if we want to actually translate that into something that we all understand, the locutionary act is the act of uttering the words, the actual words that come through our mouth when we speak. The illocutionary act is the intended result, like that we want to achieve by uttering those specific words. And the perlocutionary act is the reaction or consequence that it has. Now, a very simple example of what a speech act is and why these 3 elements can sometimes cause issues. I said A, but I'll actually use 2 simple examples because they're both really good. One is the question, do you know what time it is? And the other is the question, can you reach the salt? Now, both of these questions, the locutionary act, I've actually asked something called a yes-no question to both of them. Do you know what time it is? Yes or no. Can you reach the salt? Yes or no. But both of them have an illocutionary intention. So if I ask you, do you know what time it is? And you reply with yes or no, my perlocutionary act will have failed. I did not get the reaction that I wanted because actually I meant, please tell me what time it is. And if we're sat at the table and I've asked you if you can reach the salt, and you just kind of like put your finger to it and go, yep, and then put it back and do nothing, I'm going to be a bit peeved because you haven't given it to me. So those are speech acts and why these are actually sometimes kind of complicated. So why is this relevant to our jobs with documentation? Well, even in these simple examples, there is a thing that was underlying that I didn't actually make explicit in advance, which is there has to be a common understanding of the fact that we are using a speech act and the fact that we might be saying locutionarily one thing, but meaning another. And depending on the complexity of your speech act, you might also actually need an underlying mandate in order for the speech act to become true. See, if I suddenly put my hand on your shoulder and go, you are under arrest, I, as a corporate linguist come technical writer, don't actually have the mandate or authority to arrest you. So you don't have to believe that speech act being true. Similarly, if I pronounce you husband and husband or wife and wife or any other kind of thing, I haven't actually wed you to your partner because I don't have the mandate. So thinking about that, like, what does that actually mean? I think that in the future, I would love to give an actual full talk about how speech acts affect things that we talk about in our everyday jobs, which is speaking to the right audience. Are you a trusted mandate within the documentation? And how does our documentation and the work that we do actually reflect this linguistic concept that is a thing that carries through all of our lives without us necessarily being conscious about them? Full stop.